Welcome back to ESBR Boxing, bringing you another edition of the betting show. It's a pleasure to have with me Mr. Greg Doyle, no better man to discuss what is a huge fight in the lightweight division. Devin Haney putting his undisputed title up on the line against the legendary Vasiliy Lomachenko. Greg, before we get into the fight, mate, how's things? How you doing?
Danny, thank you so much for having me. Feeling good. Really looking forward to this fight. It's a really interesting fight, so I can't wait to discuss it a little bit more.
100%. I think it's being billed as like a passing of the torch fight almost, which is strange, even though Haney's the one with the belts. You know what I'm saying? Like Lomachenko's obviously first ballot Hall of Famer, whereas I think Haney, even though he's undisputed, I don't think I'm being remiss in saying he's had a fairly easy route to undisputed compared to maybe some champions who've picked up all four belts. So no, it's an interesting one. Before we get into the actual betting tips, when the fight was announced, like what were your thoughts? Did you see the bookies have Haney as a favourite? Is that something you'd agree with? Is that what came into your mind when the fight was first announced? That yeah, Devin Haney is the favourite in this?
It's an interesting question, Danny, because I think the bookmakers have banked on Haney being the champion. Lomachenko, he's lost once or twice now. Teofimo Lopez, etc. Yeah, I think that they're looking at it and just thinking maybe Lomachenko's a little bit too small for lightweight. Haney's someone who struggles to make lightweight, and he's not been defeated and he's not looked even really relatively close to losing. So I can understand the bookmakers having Haney ahead, and with Lomachenko's little bit of inactivity with all the struggles in Ukraine, as we know, but that's a political matter. So I can get it, Danny, but I think it's a lot closer than some of them are giving it credit for.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, Greg, we could discuss the details of the fight all night, especially you've
Oh
got a
yeah.
very good analytical brain for boxing, so we'll end up with a half an hour video if we start that. So we'll cut the waffle and we'll cut the nonsense. The people are here for some betting tips. Give us
That's it, mate.
one. Let's have your first one, mate.
Yes. So, Danny, for me, the value in this fight is Lomachenko. We're looking at value. We're looking at possible outcomes. We're not looking at things where we're going to tell the viewers to go 1-4 on Haney because there's no money to be made in that. Lomachenko is very alive in this fight. He can stay close to Haney, change the angles. Haney could struggle to make the weight. So I'm looking at Lomachenko round 7-12 or points is currently 5-2 with Sky Bet. I think that that's a good bet if Lomachenko has been taking this as serious as he's ever took boxing. So yeah, that's my first one, Danny.
Mate, couldn't agree more with you. I think if you're betting this fight from a value angle, you've got to be on Lomachenko for the most part, for all I can see. See, my fight, as I was saying to you before we started recording, my opinion on the fight's sort of changing, and even like taking betting value aside, I've started to think, you know what, Lomachenko could maybe do this. Like, I
Yeah.
think a lot's been made of the Ortiz performance, and to be fair to you, we I wouldn't say we can argue, but we were discussing it on WhatsApp one night, and you says that Ortiz is a good live young fighter, and that's a win that potentially could age. And maybe from that point on, then watching some more stuff. Like Ortiz beat Jamal Herring, you know what I mean? Like he's not a world beater, but it's a good win for a young fighter. And then you just
Yeah.
look at it, and anytime Haney or Lomachenko's lost, it's been he's been able to be pushed backwards. Like, is that Devin Haney style? He's more of like a back foot, get you behind his jab type thing, and he can't really fight on the inside. And like I don't know. So as the fight again, we're getting too much into the analyticals here, but as the fight comes more closer, I'm starting to favour Lomachenko more and more. And 7-2 on a Lomachenko decision, I know that that'll correlate well with yours. I think it's just a huge price. And another thing that you have to factor in when you're picking a bet is the sort of promotional factors at play. Haney's
Yeah.
last fight will Top Rank, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Shakur Stevenson is who they want the winner to fight. They want Shakur Stevenson as the undisputed lightweight champion here. I think that's
Yeah.
what Bob Arum wants in an ideal world. Haney, one, there's no guarantees he'll sign with Top Rank, and two, he's made it pretty clear he's quite tight at lightweight, and it'll not be too long before he'll move up to 140. I think they would prefer a Lomachenko win here, and I like as that paves the route for that Stevenson fight. So with all that said, I think 7-2 on Lomachenko decision is a pretty big price.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Danny, because Lomachenko on his day as one of the greatest fighters and widely regarded by a lot of people as the greatest amateur of all time. I think he had a record of 396-1 in the amateurs. He came back and beat the Russian twice, who beat him. Touch point on what you said, Danny. The weird thing is, I agreed with you. When Lomachenko beat Ortiz, for me, very slightly different, but it's similar to someone like someone losing to Tank Davis and then coming back and taking Rolly Romero and beating Rolly Romero. You would be like, well, maybe someone of a high stature should be beating Rolly Romero, but you still think, God, that's a good win. Like, you see these guys, Danny, me and you'll agree on this. These guys who'll lose a fight and they'll come back and they'll take a kid who's 23-7,
Yeah.
2 draws, and they win and they look okay. But I mean, he came back and fought a real live opponent, and he must have been thinking a little bit, am I as invincible as I used to be? Because let's not make any mistake, Danny, he was invincible for a while. No one would get close to him. So I think your 7-2 bet is very, very tempting for a lot of people. If we can slightly discuss just something for the viewers in terms of what else can happen, Lomachenko's a little bit older now. He's been a little bit inactive. Devin Haney to win by stoppage in the second half of the fight is 8-1. That's quite crazy value as well. But I think you're going to need to dissect this fight, Danny, the way that we do, to try and find the value in these bets. Everyone has their day in boxing. People get old overnight. That could happen with Lomachenko. But with you, I just think he's still live in this fight. So it's really interesting from a betting perspective, but you would need to be pretty precise for value in this fight.
100%. It's not been like trying to research it. It's not been the easiest like to get away from Lomachenko. I think like if you are of the opinion that you feel that Lomachenko looks as if he has lost a step, not just against Ortiz, maybe against Come and Nakatani, which I'm not really sure how you could think that because they looked unbelievable in both those fights. Then the 8-1 on Haney stoppage isn't a bad one. Greg, I think we've broke that down pretty well there. Hopefully we can find a winner for the viewers. Like, not gonna blow my own trumpet here, but this is the first betting show since Canelo Ryder. So I hope they're all eating well off Canelo points at 4-1. Get it all on. Don't save it. Put it all on. Lomachenko decision. No, I'm joking. Bet responsibly, all that. Greg, thanks very much for joining me, mate. If you've made it this far with myself and Greg, like, comment if you agree, if you disagree, if you think we're talking shite, which always a possibility. Subscribe to SBR Boxing. We'll wrap it up there. Nice one, Greg. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Danny. If we win £200 each on Loma at 0.7-2, we'll go to Ibiza.
100%, mate. Love it all. Cheers, folks.